All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakwakadash. Double honors to the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and salutations to the brothers that are doing his work through sincerity. And we're going to jump right into the lesson. This is First Peter 5 and 10. And it says, "But the power of all grace was called us into his eternal glory by Messiah Yahweh Shai, after ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you." So, what this verse explains and relays so simply and beautifully is that suffering is part of our growth. Catching hell, going through trials and tribulations, going through moments of where things don't go your way. I'm not going to say depression, but that is part of it. Depression is part of the truth. Sorrows is part of the truth. Uh, there's a lot of what you might call negative things that are part of the truth, and these are things that benefit the austere man. Let me get that word austere. Now, this is from Luke 19 and 21, the parable of Yahweh Shai, where the master, who is Yahweh Shai in this parable, is an austere man. I think there's a subtitle for it. The parable 10 minus. So, this is the excuse of the servant that hid his talent in the napkin, or hid his money in a napkin. It says, "For I fear thee, because thou art an austere man. Thou takest up that thou layest not down, weepest thou that is not so." So this individual knew that his Lord, or if you could say here in Yahweh Shai, is an austere man. Let's get that word austere. It says, from a presumed derivative of the same G109, meaning blown, rough, properly as a gale, that is figurative, severe, austere. It says, austeros, of mind and manner, harsh, rough, rigid. That's austere, man. So, if we're going to be like Yahweh Shai, who was an austere man, then we are going to have a mind and manners of roughness and rigidness and harshness. Lives that reflect that. Lives that reflect, basically, Paul put it best, the life of a soldier. For those that served in the military, brothers that served in the military, there's a lot of brothers that served in the military. You know that life is it can be very harsh and rigid. Sometimes there's no room for any type of basically bullshit. It's a life that demands discipline, that demands a harsh, rugged training, something that the average person is not required of them. And we are called to a soldier's life, man. We are called to a life of austerity, a life of roughness, a life of rigidness, a life where things are not going to go your way. And this is preached time and time again, but once again it's being brought out. You look at the apostles of Great Millstone, you can tell that these are harsh, rough, rugged men. These are men of zero tolerance for bullshit. And that's part of the character of Yahweh Shai. And that's part of the character you gotta have to endure in this truth. Let's get 2 Timothy 2 and 3. Now we'll start at verse 1. It says, Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Mashiach Yahushai. And the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who should be able to teach others also. So that speaks of a mentorship among the body, a mentorship of teaching others, not just teaching them the scriptures, but teaching men by personal example and counsel and rebuke and reproof. Whenever the situation rises for those things, how to be hard men, how to be men of a strong mentality. Apostle Gabar always likened this truth to Stoicism. And Stoicism is a philosophy. I'm going to go ahead and get it. And this is Google's answer. What is a Stoic mindset? It says a Stoic mindset involves cultivating self-control, accepting what's beyond our control, and focusing on what we can influence. It's about finding peace and fulfillment by managing our emotions and thoughts rather than letting external circumstances dictate our well-being. And those external circumstances, most of the time, is going to be the trouble that you go through. So we are called to a soldier's life. Let's go back to the scriptures. It says, the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, saying, commit thou to faithful men, to be able to teach others also. And a man that's faithful, a man that is faithful most of the time, he's going to be a serious-minded individual, because faith requires seriousness. I'm not saying that brothers don't smile and get together and joke around, and engage in the balance of folly and fun and things of that nature. Fun according to our definition of it, because when we be fun among brothers, it could be boring to the world. But faithful men are most of the time very serious men that take matters of morality, matters of belief, matters of the Lord very seriously. That's what required to be a faithful man. Let's go to verse 3. It says that thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Mashiach Yahushai. So we are called to endure hardness, man. Let's go ahead and get that in NLT. This is NLT, and it says, endure suffering along with me as a good soldier of Mashiach Yahushai. Soldiers don't get tied up in the affairs of civilian life. And that's another thing, man. You're in the military, you're a different class of person. You're considered a different class of individual. You're considered a individual that's apart from what they call the norm. Because your life, your obligations require a greater commitment than the average person. You're a soldier and the average person is a civilian. So soldiers didn't get tied up in the affairs of civilian life, for then they cannot please an officer who enlisted them. You're called to the life of rigidness and discipline. Go back to the King James. So no man that wars entangle himself with the affairs of this life, but the NLT said it good, or the affairs of a civilian, that he may please him who has chosen him to be a soldier. So we are called to live the life of a soldier, and also we are called to live the life of a servant, a slave. Paul himself called himself a servant and a slave. Let's go ahead and get that. Right here in Romans 1:1, it says, Paul, a servant of Mashiach Yahushai, called to be apostle, separated to the gospel of Yahweh. Now, we just read in the previous scripture about entangling himself, a soldier doesn't entangle himself in the affairs of life, so he separates himself from that. If you look at the word servant, it goes into being a slave, if I'm correct. It says servant, bondman, from G1210, a slave, literally or figuratively, involuntary or voluntarily, frequently therefore in qualified sense of subjection or subserviency. It says a slave, bondman, man of servile condition. We are called to service. That's one of the things they call the military. They call it the service. Were you in the service? Did you serve? And that brings to mind a servant. So we are called into service, man. We are called into being a servant. We are called to being a slave. We are called to being a soldier. We are called to being men that take instruction in order. It says metaphorically, one who gives himself up to another's will. Those whose service is used by Mashiach in extending and advancing his cause among men. Now, if that ain't definition of being in the truth, then I don't know what is, man. That's a beautiful definition. That sums it all up. It says devoted to another to the disregard of one's own interest. Once again, that ties into entangling itself in the affairs of life. A servant, attendant. We are to attend to the Lord. So when you really break down these scriptures, uh, you see what exactly we are called to become, what exactly we are called to be. And that's why those that care too much about this world and this life and the things in it, most of the time they fail unless they learn, to just accept what it is. They'll either fall out and they'll fail, man. It's like the apostle would say, it's not a hangout. Not to say that brothers don't fellowship with each other, but this is a serious business. This is a business that the Lord demands a soldier-like quality within you, a soldier-like mentality. Let's go ahead and get some more scripture. We'll close it out. I had technical difficulties back, but it says 2 Corinthians 10:4. It says, "For the weapons of our warfare," so what that basically tells you that when you're coming to this truth, you're engaging in a warfare. You're coming into a warfare, a battle, a spiritual battle. It says, "For the weapons of warfare are not carnal, but mighty to Yahweh, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down." And this is our war, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yahweh, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Mashiach. That warfare is fought against the world. And if you really think about it, we have the victory through Yahushua, because he said that he overcame the world already. And when Yahushua comes back, he's going to subdue the nations and bring war to these nations and take crowns, man. But we are engaged in a warfare. Let's go ahead and get that definition for warfare. It says military service, that is figuratively the apostolic career as one of hardship, danger, warfare. And hardship and danger, they're coming. Hardship and danger is going to be a great part of enduring of our faith in the times to come. It says an expedition, campaign, military service, warfare. Metaphorically, Paul likens his contest with the difficulties that oppose him in the discharge of apostolic duties as warfare. So Paul likened, or he saw, or he looked at his walk, his service in his truth as a battle, a spiritual battle. So that just tells you that he took that very seriously. And this is the same mindset that we have to walk in. And the way you're doing it is by walking worthily. Let's go ahead and get Ephesians. Where's that at? Salah. Ephesians 4:1. It says, "I therefore beseech, therefore the prisoner." So not only did Paul call himself a soldier, like it is to being a soldier, he likened it to being a servant or a slave. He likened it to being a prisoner. Now, if you look at all those three things, those are when you're a servant, when you're a soldier, when you're a prisoner, you are under the regimen of another. You are told when to do and what to do and where to do it. You are living a life of a very restricted life. And Paul likened himself to all those things. So that just tells you the serious mindset that is necessary to walk in this truth. It said, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you're called. And the vocation, let's get that word vocation. I think it means calling. Yeah. A calling, a call, invitation, a divine invitation to embrace the salvation of Yahweh. So our vocation is divine. This vacation is a calling. You know, people talk about, this is my calling. Or basically they're saying this is what they were meant to do, or their life purpose. And if we are the elect, then this is our life purpose, man. This is what we were meant to do. And you got to think about that constantly. And that helps you, make sense of this whole thing, man. That helps you give you the right mindset. That gives the right mental attitude to fight. It said, with all loneliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There's one body, one Spirit, even as you're called, and one hope of your calling. And so that's what it is, man. This is what we are called to do, and this is the life that we are called to live. There's a saying in the Marine Corps that says, "Embrace the suck," or just like embrace the hardness of it. And as the scriptures say, we're called to embrace the suck or embrace the hardness of this life. But with that being said, just another quick lesson. Most I wouldn't hope is edifying. With that, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Kahala Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Brothers, keep on pushing. Shalom.